Welcome to the Forum, your way to keep up with state and community leaders, experts, and local business leaders. This is your chance to hear from and talk to people that affect your life right here in Rim Country. You can express your opinions by calling 474-2427. And remember, the comments and opinions of guests and callers are not necessarily the opinions of KMOG. Welcome to Rim Country Forum.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. Charlie Seraphin with you on the Forum this morning again, and we want to thank our sponsors, the Power of Fives, the Dana Law Group, Banner Health, Payson Medical Center, which will be our focus today and again tomorrow, Pinnacle Propane, Realty Executives, Arizona Territory, the Owens Law Firm, and Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration. And ladies and gentlemen, all of you listening in Tibet or in Mongolia on the internet at KMOGcountry.com. Welcome aboard, and hope that you're hungry, because we are going to talk food today, among other adventures. Our guest is Frank Spinos, who is the director of culinary at Banner Health, Payson Medical Center. Morning, Frank.
Good morning, Charlie. How are you today?
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us. So let's go ahead and full disclosure. Let's tell the story. You were originally booked to be on the program tomorrow.
A little oversight by our CEO, but that's okay.
Okay, and
he's a busy man.
Hoyt thought, well, you know what? I think I'll send Frank in to sort of test the waters and see how it goes, and then if he makes it out alive, then the rest of us will come in tomorrow.
I think that's the plan.
Something like that. But we're going to talk about an interesting, relatively newcomer to Payson, who has a fascinating background, and he's going to take all your questions and about anything having to do with food, because he's a food prep expert. Mm-hmm. He's been doing it for a long time and has had a really interesting career. So we're going to start at the beginning, as we always do. Frank Spinos, where were you born?
I was actually born in Bronx, New York. I lived there for a year, and then my parents decided to head west. So I lived in San Diego pretty much my whole life.
So raised as a youngster, a toddler, you were in San Diego.
Correct.
And enjoyed that beautiful beach weather. And what part of San Diego? That's a sprawling area now, so a lot of different neighborhoods.
Carlsbad, which is pretty what they call North County. Mm-hmm. So I've never lived further than a half mile from the ocean. So it's a beautiful city, not too built up yet. It's getting there. And I love it. And I still have my houses there because, the real estate, I'm sure everybody knows, is, crazy in San Diego. I did leave a couple times. Once for a few years, I went to Virginia. I worked for Marriott Corporation. But then I migrated back to San Diego, and I've been ever since, until 2.5 years ago. I decided to move to Arizona and found Payson. I love it here.
Yeah, it's just for people, and you lived near the ocean all your life. I lived near the ocean in St. Augustine, Florida, block and a half from the beach, and the ocean is really it's wonderful, it's peaceful, it's spectacular. And I never thought of myself as a mountain person, but as soon as I got here, I there was something about it that really just kind of mellowed me right out.
The same here. We have a house up in Big Bear, which is kind of parallel to here. Mm-hmm. And when I was offered a position here, I drove up, and first I thought I was lost because I was like, I'm driving for a long time in the middle of nowhere. And then when I got up here, I was like, this is just like Big Bear, mountains and trees and the whole 9 yards. And kind of to your point, I've always been a beach person. I've always been around water. But every time we go to our cabin up in Lake Arrowhead, I'd always be, I really like the trees and so it's God put all different things on the earth, and so I spent a good part of my life near the beach, and now I'm going to spend a good part of my life in the mountains.
There you go. So how did you get into culinary?
Oh God! So when I was in high school, I went through the busboy thing, and then I went to be a waiter, then I went to be a bartender. And then one of the assistant managers, I bet her name was Eileen Flanagan. I still remember her. Okay. She goes, Frank, why don't you're great with people, and you're very organized and whatever. She goes, you ever think of going into management? So I said, well, let me give it a try. So I started off, and one thing led to another, and I'm kind of a type A personality. So I said, well, being an assistant manager is really not my thing. I need to be the boss. So I just made the dedication to myself and pushed through the ranks, and I passed that assistant manager position in 3 months. It was kind of an interesting story. My manager, my boss, one day came to me and goes, Frank, I'm going to run away with one of the waitresses. And then at the time he was way older than me, so he's probably like 32. And I looked at him. I go,
really an old guy.
Old guy, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I go, Chris, you got to be kidding me. What do you mean he's going to run away? Well, back in those days, this is way before computers and whatever else, so there was this secret book that was called the Manager Control Book that produced all the numbers. And I would always ask him, how do you get this? And at nighttime, I'd try to figure out what he did and whatever. So he left, and so I gathered the other two assistant managers and the crew. I said, well, Chris is, on vacation, last-minute vacation, so we need to hold the fort together. So we did. And so when the district manager would call, is Chris there? I go, well...
What kind of restaurant was it?
It was with Marriott. It was a fast food called Bob's Big Boy back then.
Okay.
It's kind of parallel to Denny's type thing. Yep. And so when Bob called, he goes, where's Chris? I'd lie. I said, well, he's at the bank. And a couple of days later, where's Chris? And, whatever. So finally, after about 3 weeks, he actually comes in. I'm like, oh, man, I'm in big trouble now. And he goes, okay, where's Chris? And so I had to tell him. And he goes, who's been running the store? And I said, well, I have. And he goes, these numbers have been great. He goes, do you think you could take the store over? And at that time, there was like a 12-week training program and the whole 9 yards. And I said, no, I'm ready. I mean, he goes, you know what? Here's your keys. So ever since then, I've been in a general manager or above position. So, I love people. To me, it's like having a party at your house and you just have a lot of guests.
So being a general manager of a food service, and we're going to talk about some of your other career stops along the way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a palate or that you are good with food preparation. You might be good at managing people. How do you find the right kind of chef? How do you find the right kind of people and the right kind of recipes and all that? Bob's Big Boy was pretty straightforward because it's all corporate mandated recipes, and you don't deviate.
Exactly. Right? So a lot of my career was I worked for Aramark, and I went in business dining, and you're right, that was, you learn. Where
in Aramark? Did you travel around with, because Aramark has a lot of different levels.
Right.
They have cafeteria, and then they have executive. And
so I started off with business dining, and to me, going from a restaurant, which you work, weekends, holidays, and nights, and all of a sudden I go to business dining, which is Monday through Friday, weekends off, holidays off. I go, man, this is almost like a regular life. But to your point, you have all these training classes, training programs, recipes, whatever. Prior to that, I actually worked with Marriott, and that was the same thing. But then I started transitioning to director of special projects. I got to be had an opportunity to run one of the restaurants that nobody'd ever want because it's right next to the corporate office. I thought it was a great opportunity because now you're not a number. It's like, because Dick Marriott and all these people will come in. So one day Dick Marriott came in and goes, Frank, I want you to come and work with me. And I'm doing what? And he goes, I don't know, we'll figure out a title. How about Director of Special Projects? I said, okay. So I traveled to Tennessee. He saw a concept he liked. One thing led to another. Then I started going to building design or building remodels. Then I got better at that, and then he's put me to where as soon as the restaurant pad and 4 walls were up, I was in trailer outside and started getting on the construction side. So then I started building restaurants, and I was director of culinary. I was building manager. I was a training manager. So at this point in my life, I have these 9 million different resources in all different areas that I get to pull from my pocket.
Well, Aramark is a huge company, and we had a friend who was the executive chef, was the top guy on the food part of it for Aramark for a while. And Aramark, I don't know if people know this, but in a lot of the athletic stadiums around the country, Aramark is a big player. Where
Correct.
They'll provide all the concessions, but they also provide the club services and the fine dining and all that. And there are a lot of different levels, as we said. So you did that, and then you do the Marriott thing. Well, Marriott's a huge corporation, so you're traveling around and flying on the corporate jets every once in a while. Yeah, right.
It was an interesting career, I said, because I did so many different things with them. And I just got better at it, and Hoyt will probably attest, I have a certain amount of tenacity to where if I decide that, or somebody decides this project has to be done by this date, it gets done. There's words like maybe, it's not part of my vocabulary. Then I actually moved on to Compass, which is another one. It kind of followed that same trail. So probably 20 plus years of my career, I was either working for the big three. And so, again, a ton of training. You get exposed to a lot of people. I work with marketing people. I work with chefs, business, menu development. Me personally, was never trained as a cook. But because I've been exposed to so many different areas and with so many chefs, and I can
good food from bad food.
I can hold my own. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And I love it because it's when it comes to the business, it's the challenge of getting the business. I actually went off to own my own company in contract food service. My wife goes, "Why don't you start your own company?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I said, one, I work for the three big, so I know what their, Achilles heel was. I had a good friend that owned a vending company because I needed to have a vending company support. I had another friend that did a coffee service. And I started off, I think, with a $5,000 investment, and I built it to almost, I think by third year, I was at $4.2 million. So the challenge was, here's me and my little company going up against the big guys. And I actually won what they call RFP, which companies put out. And one of them was against Marriott, and I won it. And my old boss, who was then the vice president, he goes, "Frank, I can't believe you went and stole our business." And I go, "Jay, it's all your fault. You're the one that taught me how to be this good."
Yeah.
And so it went real well. Then when the recession came, I decided it was a good time to sell the business while it was still on the top. And I went to work for Disney. Living in California my whole life, I've probably been there a million times. And I still go there. Well, not now. It's just reopening. But so I was in charge of all the cast members. So that's what Disney calls the employees. There was probably about 22,000 of them. And I had a staff of, if I remember correctly, about 360 employees and 60-something managers. And because pretty much it's 24/7 type business. That was probably one of the most fascinating jobs I ever had because, one, I worked for Sodexo at the time, running that food service. But I also interfaced tremendously with Disney. And so I got to know that whole philosophy, and I was lucky enough to be there when Cars Land was first built. So just when I got there, the ground up was just starting to be going ground up. And I watched that thing being built in less than a year. I mean, underground was done, but they built the entire above ground in less than a year. They worked 24/7. They were determined it's going to open on that date, and it did. So,
and your job was to ensure that all the crews that were doing that work were fed.
Right. So we had 8 cafeterias throughout the park, what they call behind stage. And our job was to feed all the cast members. So that's where they took their breaks, had their lunch, had their dinners, had their breakfasts. So it's pretty much just like a bunch of restaurants behind the scenes. I installed 3 Subway franchises there. So I got to know the president of the Orange County Subway franchise real well. So I went to him. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in there. And I think his name is Bob. And I said, "Bob, why don't we get some golf carts, put with Subway graphics on it, and just load them up and just have these things kind of spider all over the campus?" And first he looked at me like, we don't do that stuff. And I go, "No, I think it'd be really good. I promise it'll work out well." So we did one. It went great, and then we think we had 6 more. So,
was that for patrons or just for staff?
Just for staff.
Okay.
Just for staff. So all I was in charge of was making sure that one of the cafeterias was for the corporate people, because the corporate office for Disneyland is right on site. That was called E-Ticket. So you got to meet all kinds of interesting people. The people that worked there. I mean, one was more interesting than the next. So it was a fun job.
Disney is famous for customer service. That's their whole thing. It's like do you create the special experience for the customer? What did you learn from your time behind the scenes there, working with them, watching them train their employees in customer service?
So interesting enough, I guess a couple of months ago, Dr. Booth, who's our chief medical officer, had her boss came up to visit. So he wound up talking to me, and we're shooting the breeze and whatever. And somehow Disney came up, and he goes, "Did you ever read this book?" And I can't remember the name of the book, but it was written by a hospital executive that decided to go to work for Disney to find out how they could transfer that philosophy. So Hoyt gave me one of the copies that he had set up. And he goes, "Frank, did you ever read this book?" And I said, "I worked there for 3 years. I think I know what's in it." But Disney, their whole philosophy, and this goes from when Walt was alive, they will spend whatever it takes to make sure that the guest is in every shape and form taken care of. When it comes behind the scenes, which you don't see, they're very minimalist. So they will renovate something to only what the customer sees, the guest sees. Their training, so I was a contractor, I still had to go through the 2 weeks of training that everybody else did. And this is how long your hair could be. This is how long, they have pictures of how long your sideburns, your mustache, your beard. They spend millions on training because they want to make sure that if a guest asks a cast member pretty much anything, they know the answer or where to direct them. When Cars Land opened, and it was coordinated with another part of Disney, they used Stage 17, and they cut it in 3 different parts, Cars Land and then these other 2 areas that they were promoting. And every single one of the 22,000 cast members had to go through 3 days of training. So that's 8 hours times 22,000 times 3 to go through, just to make sure that they were, and these were full-on production sets of Cars Land, of this and this, just to make sure that these people were well trained. They take care of people, their benefits. Even as a contractor, I got 10 tickets, or we had a card, but so you got to bring 40 people or throughout the year for free. So you times that by $160 or whatever it is now. They had a coupon book that was probably 5 inches thick that was discount for whatever you want. The staff members get discounts. But again, their training, one of the things that I thought was amazing was their uniforms. Every cast member has, I think, 6 sets of uniforms and 5 days a week. And they never get mixed up. I don't know how they do it. They just, because they do their own laundry on house. They have their own bank on the facility. They have their own electric plant. They have their own water treatment plant, the whole 9 yards. It's like a whole city inside a city. It's a very interesting company, which is why I guess it's been so successful. The interesting part is I met with the CFO. I got to be really good friends with her. The park actually barely breaks even. Their overhead is so high that you would think they're making a ton of money because of all this. Most of the time, it barely breaks even. They rely on their other resources.
Well, folks, I promise you, this is an interesting guy. We just scratched the surface. We haven't even talked about the journey to Payson. We're speaking with Frank Spinos, who is the director of culinary at Banner Health Payson Medical Center, and we'll have more after this. If you have a question or a comment of anything we've covered so far, 474-2426. Good morning. Thanks so much for being with us. We are having fun here on the Rim Country Forum. It's a beautiful day. We got moisture in the air. We've been praying for rain for weeks, and we got some today, and we're just happy about that. It's 25 minutes after 9 o'clock. I'm Charlie Seraphin, and this is the Forum. So we talk to interesting people, and we learn a lot of things. The whole concept of Disney is it's fascinating because of the brand, the way the brand has been presented over many, many years, and started with Walt Disney, who was a kind of an eccentric character, failed, and people told him that he was not good enough and would never make it, and built an empire that's lasted long after his passing, and a legacy that is a permanent part of the human record now, all over the world.
It was actually his brother Roy was the money guy. Walt was he was a cartoonist. That's what he did, and his brother Roy was the kind of the finance and more on the business side, but. It's a fantastic company.
Yeah. So you left Disney, and then what?
then what did I do? Oh, then I just started going back into real estate, and I just started buying and investing in real estate. And that's how I wound up here. Well, in Arizona, my son goes to ASU. He's going to be a DNA engineer. And so I
just following in the old man's footsteps, right? Yeah.
Both my kids are both amazing. So I bought him I couldn't see paying rent, even though it's way cheaper here. So I bought him a 3-bedroom house. So I had some time and I renovated it. And so now he has 2 roommates and he already has a positive income. And that's when I came across this position. So first thing I did was like, okay, where do I want to live? Because that's always important to me, especially when I know where I'm. So I started looking at places to buy or rent. And one place that was for rent that I really liked was in Chaparral Pines. So I said, okay, I found a nice place to live. Let's take care of that. And then I came up and I interviewed, and they said we're on board, and called up the rental person and said, okay, I'll take the house, and which now I own, but that's besides the point.
So how many years ago was that? Three,
so
you
said? It's been 2.5 years. So December 17th was my second year, so just almost a half a year, I guess, past that.
Okay. And a radical change from any place you've ever been, because most of it's been in Southern California.
Yep.
You did spend that time in the D.C. area, but what's most special about Payson?
So one thing I love about here is it's obviously way more relaxed. It's actually way cheaper. I mean, when I went to buy the house and the lady told me the price that she was asking for it, my comment was, "Are you serious?" And she thought it meant that it was a lot. And I said, for what I'm used to, I mean, where I come from, $1.2 million, $1.3 million is a normal price for that's just how much houses are. So I said, okay, well, I'll just take it. Here's a check. It's just before you change your mind on this. But I play golf, so it's perfect because I wake up in the morning. My girlfriend put all these bird feeder things, so the birds come running around. And of course, I had to get used to animals eating. I planted roses and plants, and I come out a couple of days later, and they're gone. And there's only one person on my street. And I said, Lynn, did you went out to my plant? Oh, yeah, so elk came over and ate it, or those pig, what do they call those pig things? The javelina. I guess they ate them.
Yeah.
And actually, one day, an eagle landed on my deck, and so we just kind of looked at each other. I'm like, okay, well, I'm good with that.
Welcome to God's country.
Yeah. So, I mean, I said my house is up on a hill. It's got a great view. I have a gorgeous deck, and I spent a lot of time out there just looking at the rim and looking at the trees. And the golf course is amazing. So I have the 2 golf courses you could play on. So I got everything I need, and I'm 5 minutes from work, which is huge for me. There was a point where I was traveling between an hour and 2 hours every day, just going and coming from work. So to get out of bed and be at work in 3 minutes is, I kid around with my girlfriend. I fill my tank up once, and if I don't go to San Diego, it lasts like 2 months. So, and I said the people are real nice. The people are very genuine. You don't have to. People here don't seem like they judge you. And I mean, in California, it's like, what kind of car you have? Is it what year it is? Can't even just be, or what kind of house you have? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? So this is like almost 180 degrees on the other side of the fence for me. It's great. I love it.
Okay, so you're, I don't know if you know this or not, but there are a lot of people in Payson that have, well, first of all, we always pay respect to the people who have been here and generationally who have been here and their families have been here because they have a really unique perspective and they know a lot about the history and the community and they're a very special group of people. Then there are another group of people that haven't been here as long, like you, but bring all these world experiences, all the corporations that you worked for and the places that you've been and the things that you've seen, and they bring that perspective here. So now we're going to get to Banner Health, Payson Medical Center, Director of Culinary, which is probably, if you think about your career, it's probably going back a long time since you've had a position that was as relatively simple in terms of your responsibilities as your job here. But you went for it and you took it and explained the rationale there. What were you thinking?
So I guess probably retirement is not a great word, but I was just looking for something that less time consuming, less time in traffic, less just the whole general hustle and bustle life, but I also liked it. I always like a challenge. If I don't have a challenge in my life, it's okay. Now what am I going to do? So again, I never worked for a hospital before, and I said, okay, I have never worked for a hospital. I've never even been in a hospital. I've only missed 2 days of work my whole life. I don't get sick. But how can I make it better? So when I first went there, the place looked kind of dated for, what I was looking. And I also, over my construction and whatever, I learned how to do a lot of things. So one of the things I first did was remodel the cafeteria. So I physically went in there and painted it. And then we had this plastic salad bar that I didn't like. So I built my own. And so I probably did about $30,000 worth of remodel work and maybe spent $2,000 on material. So Lance, who was the CEO at the time, thought that was great. Then I looked at the patient service, and again, never being in a hospital, but so my only perspective of hospital food is kind of what you hear in the street. It's probably as bad or not worse than, school food. So when I first went there, pretty much everything there was really no menu. So it was Monday was roast beef day, and Tuesday was whatever day, and so on, so on. The food was served out of a steam table. It was served on these old trays and old china, and it was in this blue plastic cover that just to me looked kind of depressing.
I think that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, you're in the hospital, so it's just like
so I'm like, okay,
we're
I'm
going to punish
sick.
you.
I'm sick already, and now I got to eat like this.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed is that when we took the orders, so they call them WOW, so they're on this kind of a pole on wheels, and it's the same mechanism that all your medical, like if you get a shot, that thing gets wheeled in. You get hooked up to IV, that's what they use. So I thought, God, if I was a patient and I went in there and here's this culinary person walking in with the same thing that I just got pain from to take my order, just the whole system. So I kind of looked at, went back to a couple things. One was my corporate background. So in business dining it's where they have restaurants and, for the workers. So the whole incentive of that is to keep the people from going out. So it's fair price, great food, so on, so on. Your incentive is to make sure they don't want to go out for lunch because that's kind of your job so they don't waste as much time. And so I said, okay, how can I bring that into the hospital? And then I also worked in the hotel division for a long time, so everything's spot on. So I think I was there maybe 6 months, kind of sitting back and figuring what was going on. And I said, okay, that's it. This is out of here. So I decided that I was going to implement pretty much a room service menu because to me it's important especially in a small town to let people know. To me, it's real easy. It's like we talked, you don't need a lot of marketing dollars and a lot of advertising. You just have to do a really good job, and that gets through real fast. So the first thing I did is I developed a menu, and some of it is according to diets and whatever. So we have different menus for different diets.
When you develop the menu, is that like the orange Jell-O and then the green Jell-O?
No, I scrapped everything. So
Okay.
a lot of the food was frozen, pre-portioned, pre-done, whatever. So I said I had a meeting with my chefs. I said we're going to scratch everything. So I got rid of quite a bit of equipment, brought in quite a bit of equipment because now we were actually going to cook food. I threw all the china out, all the metal silverware, the trays. So now everything's served on a nice black tray, nice white china, nice silverware. What they call a camp cover is the clear top that just like you get in a hotel, because now the food's taken for order. I threw all those carts out, and went to iPads. So to me, I want it to be just like a hotel. So now my aides, which I'm not really like that word, but so they'll go and interview you and say, Charlie, what would you like today? We have, this, and this, or this, and this. So, it's just like when you go to a restaurant, they have an iPad and they're taking their order and taking the order. it goes down to the kitchen.
What's some of the this, and this? That's what people are listening right now. They're going,
we have everything.
I'm not buying this. This all sounds good so far because you got new trays and new covers and everything. But what about the food itself? It's hospital food is what the
now it's not
expectation.
Anymore.
So it's not anymore.
Not anymore.
So what are some options that you could order if you're in the hospital?
So we have. It's too bad I couldn't bring pictures. You can't see it in the radio. I have a Chef Jill that is amazing. Even down to the garnish. So when's the last time, if you've ever been in a hospital, that you have a full-on restaurant quality garnish next to your food? But we have chicken piccata, we have salmon, fresh salmon, different type of Italian foods, manicotti, lasagna. We also have the staples. Some of the senior groups like the meatloaf, except now it's meatloaf from scratch. It's not the pre-made meatloaf. We have roast turkey that's not the pre-made, it's actual roasted turkey and sliced. So all the products are fresh, all the vegetables are fresh. The potatoes are now twice cooked potatoes instead of just plain old baked potato thrown on the plate. One thing we do also for our maternity side is kind of our way giving back to the mom that just had a baby is we have what we call a tea cart. So it's a bacon wrapped filet mignon with grilled shrimp, twice cooked potato, fresh vegetables. Jill does an amazing job. She makes these custom cookies with the newborn's name on it and a bottle of champagne. So that's our mom and dad's kind of congratulations and have a nice meal dinner. Before COVID came, we were actually open to the public, and we were probably serving 30 to 40 people were coming off the street because our reputation was getting out there that this food's really good. We made Twitter, we made Facebook, kind of citing that some of our food is comparable or maybe a little better than the local competition, which that's a good thing. Competition is always good.
Do we have any idea of when the cafeteria will be open to the public again?
Not at this time. It's kind of getting a little bit better. I mean, we have our volunteers are starting to come back, but that's a CDC.
Do a lot of the volunteers eat in the cafeteria?
Yes, and so part of what we give back since they're volunteering their time, we have the therapy dog people. They come in, they bring their pets, and they visit the patients, which is a great thing. So we pick up their meals as a kind of a thank you to them.
Excellent. 21 minutes until 10 o'clock on the Rim Country Forum. Charlie Serafin with you, along with Frank Spinos, who is the Director of Culinary at the hospital here in Payson. If you have any questions about the hospital, particularly hospital food or hospital food service, I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. 474-2427. More after this. Happy Tuesday to you. And thank you, Lord, for the rain, right? We're just enjoying a kind of a nice, moist day. They got some snow up on the rim, which is really good because that will help with our drought situation. It's a little bit. We need a lot more, but hey, we should be thankful for everything we get. You're listening to the Rim Country Forum on KMOG in Payson, Arizona, for those of you listening around the world on the internet. And Frank Spinos is our guest. He's the Director of Culinary at the local hospital. And we go to the phone, say good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line? Do I have the button? No, got to push the button. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We're on a road, so we may be cutting out. But I was wondering, you were talking about therapy dogs. Wondering if Shiloh's back to work yet. We knew Michael. Wondered if Frank knew Michael. He was our neighbor. And, of course, we all know he passed away a couple of years ago.
Did you get that?
Yes. Shiloh was not back, but one of Jennifer, who was in charge of the pet therapy, and I did know Michael. He was a great guy, and that was really unfortunate and surprising. She actually took him in, and I'm not sure. I know she's real busy at work, and I think occasionally she does bring him in, but he doesn't function as a therapy dog. But it's her personal pet, and as far as I know, everything's going great with that.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Okay, now, for those of us who don't know about Shiloh, what's the story there? Can you share it?
So we have pet therapy. So there's a group of people that bring their pets in, and they go visit with the patients. And it's very calming, and it's been proven that's a good function. So I think I was only with Banner maybe a month or so, and I had the pleasure of meeting Michael and Shiloh, and of course, I kind of had dog biscuits in my desk, and I still do. So the dog, they see me walking down the hall, they just yank them and head for Frank. And then one day, Jennifer made the announcement that Michael had passed away, and I'm not sure. We didn't really get any details of how that happened or anything, but I know she was one that adopted Shiloh.
What kind of dog is Shiloh?
Brown,
big dog, little
brown
dog?
and white. No, it's like a middle, like it's some type of hound, like a brown and white. But it's all the dogs have great dispositions. I mean, there's a certain, I don't know what the exact parameters are, but there's a certain degree of training that they have to go through and be certified in before they can become a pet therapy dog.
17 minutes until 10 o'clock here on the Room Country Forum with Frank Spinos, who's the director of culinary at Banner Payson Medical Center. Frank, during the break, you mentioned something, and this is really important, and people need to kind of lock in on it. Most of us, as we get older, we start to experience some kind of health challenges. And one of the health challenges has to do with, there's a picture of Shiloh right there. Look at that. Thank you, Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Shiloh.
Charlie.
Yes, come on in.
That was Rag's best friend when we first got Rags. Shiloh used to come over and play with her.
Oh, okay. Shiloh and Rags. Well, we need to have Shiloh come in and play with Rags again.
I know.
Okay, well, what's her name? Jennifer? That has
Jennifer, yes.
Shiloh now? Jennifer, if
I'll
you're
let her
listening.
know that, too.
Yeah.
She'll probably be...
Yeah, bring Shiloh in to play with Rags. So we have health issues, challenges, high blood pressure, which is pretty normal as you age, and a number of other afflictions. And a lot of them are related to seasoning, especially salt.
Correct.
And a lot of us have grown up, we just pour on the salt. It's like whatever it is, a piece of meatloaf, and, it's just got to be kind of covered in salt, and then, isn't this a great meatloaf? Because that's how we've developed our taste buds. But it's not healthy to eat a lot of salt. And so one of the things that you have to do is you have to be cognizant of where you are. It's not like you're at the employee lounge at behind the scenes at Disney. You're in a hospital, and you have the balance of nutrition and healthy versus taste and appearance and all the other things that go into it. So how do you deal with that?
So we have on this iPad, and that's one of the reasons why I went to this piece of equipment, is it has the ability to know what your diet is and what the restrictions are. So it makes it real easy. Let's say if you're on a salt restricted diet, rather than and it has the menu. So if you're on a no diet, you have a field day, all my aides do is push a button, roast beef, mashed potatoes, bam, 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 hit send, it goes to the kitchen, they prepare the food. If you are on a restricted diet, let's say, Charlie, you're on salt, everything that's not on your diet will be in red. And so it gives my aides right away, so the way we turn it around. So this is where the kind of the hotel service. Rather than you say, Frank, I like to have this, and say, sorry, you can't have that, Charlie. Okay, I'll have this. Sorry, Charlie, you can't. So what we do is we see what's in red, and so my aides will suggest themselves, Charlie, we have a great piece of fish, or we have, so now you're not being told no, but you are being directed to, kind of eat accordingly. And there are occasions where, kind of like you said, there's people that say, this doesn't make taste, and you're like, well, because you can't have salt, and they'll make the comment, well, I use a ton of salt at home, and you say, well, that's
welcome to the hospital.
We're here to kind of make you
keep it up.
We're here to make you better, so maybe you have to tail off on that till you go back.
We're happy to have you as a customer. Keep eating all that salt at home. So folks, cut them a little slack, I guess, when it comes to
doesn't
that,
happen often, but sometimes.
No, but if you're on a salt restricted diet, you have to realize that you're, and it's something that you may or may not be doing at home, but if you're not doing it, you probably need to think about it. At least cut back a little bit, and you can still have a taste of salt without having.
Well, so what we do is we kind of turn it to sometimes, depending on how far it gets escalated. Usually my aides will take that and say, well, this is kind of how you should eat, and this is whatever. And there's times where it kind of escalates to the point where I have to go visit the people, and I kind of do the same thing. I said, we're not trying to deprive you of what you like to eat or how you like to eat. I mean, carb control is another one. I usually eat 20 pancakes for breakfast, and so I kind of use it as an education, and more times than not, people kind of respect that, and they make comments like, hey, you're right, maybe I should kind of do this at home so I don't wind up back here. And said, well, nice to have you, but the people really enjoy the food. I mean, I have people now that sometimes they'll go to my aides to tell me that they wish they could stay another day because they wanted to try the chicken piccata or wanted to try the salmon, which I always thought was kind of humorous that, if the food's that good that a patient wants to stay an extra day to have another meal, that I think you've pretty much accomplished, providing good food for the patients.
What about desserts? I joked about Jell-O earlier because that was a staple in hospitals for desserts. It's like, you're in the hospital for 4 days, and your dessert on each of those days is Jell-O. It's like, hey, we got
it is a staple.
And it might be a different color today, but
it is a staple. I mean, we have, I think, 5 different flavors of Jell-O, 4 or 5 different flavors of pudding. We have cheesecake, we have carrot cake, we have chocolate cake, again, depending on what kind of diet you're on. And now Jill makes these special cookies that are, really amazing. I mean, they could win, a bake-off contest, professional bake-off contest. That's how professional they look. And then sometimes I get involved. I had, when Lance was the CEO, one of the things we do, we round on the patients. So the senior staff makes a point to go talk with the patients just to make sure everything's okay, or can we do something better, or whatever. So we had this one patient, she was from France, so he speaks French. So he came downstairs and he goes, Frank, I think we call it rounding. So he goes, I think I got you beat on the rounding because, I talked to her in French. I'm like, nobody beats me when it comes to, that. So next day I go to talk to the lady, and I know some French, so I kind of talked to her, but I also found out that she was half Italian. So it was like an afternoon, she had her lunch. So let me go make her. So I got some real fancy china, and I got some baked brie and baked it off with some crackers and little grapes around it for the French side. And then I made a cannoli on the other side. And so I brought it up to her. She goes, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And she immediately started texting, took a picture, started texting her all her friends. And so I went back. I said, Lance, by the way, I beat you on that one.
Yeah.
But I still have some really good personal relation. And that's what's fun about it, because you meet people, again, I've never been in a hospital, but a lot of times I guess when the patients get discharged, thank you very much. I'm glad you're better. We get paid. Good
have
luck.
A nice day. Yeah.
Have a nice day. And we don't do that. I mean, I have this one gentleman, somebody told me, Frank, you got to go talk to whatever room he was in. Mario, he's from Italy. So I said, all right. So I go up there, and he just starts rattling off. I said, Mario, you got to slow down. I mean, and it was his wife. I said, you got to slow down a little bit. So I wound up personally started making him like his dinner. Not that my staff couldn't do it, but it was to me, it was like, kind of having fun, make a little game, and I'd bring it up to them. They were really thankful. And next day I did whatever I did. And I've been to their house like 2 or 3 times for dinner. I mean, which is kind of cool that you're, have like a social side with the patients, which I think is really important. So we have fun. It's very, I think we focus on the patients a lot just because of the size we are. We're a very small hospital, and we're in a rural setting. So you get to know these people. I mean, I see them all over the place. I was at Old County Inn one time and with my girlfriend, and we're getting ready to leave, and these 2 older people stopped me and started talking to me. I had no idea who they were, and that's 15 miles from Payson, I think. Mm-hmm. And the more I started talking, then they mentioned something, and I go, oh, yeah, that was that guy. But here I am, 15 miles away from the hospital, and I don't even know what that time frame was, after I met them. But they still remembered me, and once they kind of jarred my memory, and we had a full-on conversation. It was really nice.
The rounding is an interesting concept that senior managers will try to create that relationship with the patient. That's kind of a Disney thing in a way too. I mean, it's not Disney doesn't do it that way. They do it through their through their cast members, but it's a special touch.
Well,
it's a Marriott touch in a way too.
So
yeah, right?
So after going back to the book, so after I read the book, and so I gave Hoyt a couple questions based on that philosophy. So I asked him, I said, Hoyt, who was our competition? So of course he started naming other hospitals. I said, okay, well, you didn't read the book because you got that one wrong. Because with Disney looks at the only competition they have is themselves. They don't care about what anybody else does. And they focus on whatever it takes to make that guest happy is what they do. Whether it buy him dinner, buy him lunch, free tickets, they will get whatever it takes. They will not take no for an answer when it comes to making you happy. And so we practice that. It's kind of like Nordstrom's does the same thing. I don't know if you're familiar, in California, which is, it's a very high-end store. They take back anything. I mean, the joke was when I was younger that the girls would go there, get gowns for their ball and return them. I had a friend once returned a battery. They don't even take batteries. But Nordstrom's point is, in fact, the book told a story where this lady came in and her heel was broken on her shoe. So she went to the shoe department to ask if they could fix it. So they said, well, let's see. So this is not shoes she bought there. They were just street shoes. So they took her shoes. They gave her a pair of loaners, and she went on her shopping. So she comes back, and they said they couldn't fix your shoe, but how do you like the pair you're wearing? She goes, I love them. She goes, they're yours. So kind of what they do is they will incentivize the customer to, because of this goodwill, and same with Disney, that you'll come back. So hospital, we don't really want you to come back, but if you have a great experience, that the food's great, the service is great, the senior staff. I mean, Hoyt's the CEO; he has no problem going to talk to everybody. So if you go to like Sharp or some of the San Diego big hospital conglomerates, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'd bet some serious money that the CEO isn't out going around talking to patients, nor is the senior staff. I mean, I had a friend that worked at, he was a director at Sharp, and I mean, they're corporate hierarchy. They stay in their world, and that's where they stay because that's somebody else's job. This hospital, everybody does everything. That's not my job, or, the whole focus is to whatever makes the patient comfortable and happy and enjoy their stay. That's what we do.
Yeah, and the Nordstrom's handbook and their training manual, the rule number 1 is the customer is always right, and rule number 2 is the customer is always right. Mm-hmm. So it's that, I call it a trust relationship, because even in the hospital, it's not so much that you're encouraging them to get sick and come back for more treatment at the hospital, but it's a trust relationship that if they have to come back, or if they were to come back, or if they're thinking about going to someplace, mm-hmm. that there's a complete trust that everything that you're doing there is going to be in their best interest. And
that's kind of what we do. We do that for the staff the same way. When due to COVID, we had a lot of the restrictions and social distancing and the whole 9 yards. So one of the things I implemented there was what they call self-checkout. So now customers can come in, or staff could come in and ring themselves out. We also came up with an online ordering system, which is new to the hospital world, where they would send their orders in, and then it'll be ready for them to pick up. So the whole thing was to make it, because the staff is under a lot of stress during COVID and the whole 9 yards. So I kind of looked at that too. How can I make their life easier? They don't have to wait on lines. Their food's ready right away. And so the whole hospital is it's like a family. That's one thing I like about it. It's just like there's nobody walks around and I'm the CEO or I'm the CMO or CN. I mean, everybody's, very approachable.
Everybody's on the team.
Everybody's the same team.
Yep. 3 minutes until 10 o'clock. You're listening to the Rim Country Forum on KMOG. It's the Rim Country Forum on KMOG, and we want to thank our sponsors for being with us again today. The Power of Fives, the Dana Law Group, Banner Health, Payson Medical Center, Pinnacle Propane, Realty Executives Arizona Territory, the Owens Law Firm, and Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration. All great local organizations, and We hope that you will continue to support them so they'll continue to support us and bring these programs to you. And Frank Spinos, it's just been a pleasure to talk to you and get to meet you a little bit
Here
today.
also, Charlie. Thank you.
Final question. You've been at a lot of places. You've had a lot of real big, high-profile jobs, but now you're here in Payson, and you're taking care of people at the local hospital, which makes you a kind of a critical service provider in the community. I don't think you take that responsibility lightly. I'm just sensing it, as we're talking. I think that you've kind of made a commitment to giving it your best and take all the experiences that you've had and try to bring them into focus here in Payson.
Well, that's what I do. I think, again, since I have such an array of different experiences in life, that it's really nice that you can pull them out of the hat when you need to and focus them when you need to, and the end result is you get to help somebody. I think that's, maybe I missed my calling it, because I really enjoy, especially when somebody's really sick and you're just like, God, how can I make this person feel better? We had this little girl, she was, I think, 4, and she was just out of it. So I went to the store and got her some popsicles and gave her a big tray full of all these goodies, and she looked at her mom, and I'm like, don't worry about your mom. You can have wherever you want. And I got her some flowers and the balloons, and it made her day. And it was so nice to, whether little or old or real old or not so old, it's, there are people that are not feeling well, and so whatever, I can do, or whatever I can get somebody else at the hospital to help support me to do to make them, feel better and whatever, I guess that's why we were put in the earth. So I really have a good time. I enjoy it.
And you're doing the Lord's work. Bless you, Frank. Nice meeting you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
Tomorrow,
pleasure.
Tomorrow we got some of the other senior staff will be here. So tomorrow's Payson Medical Center, Banner Payson Medical Center Day again on the radio. So join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for that. You're listening to KMOG Payson.